Mr. McDonnell, we're in the middle of a major national and global crisis, and yet at this moment, Labour seems to have a lot of energy and attention being consumed into the discussions around the contents of this internal report into the failings to handle anti-Semitism complaints. Do you agree with Keir Starmer when he says he's disappointed that it's in the public domain?
Yes, I am. It should never have been leaked. Look, our focus is about coronavirus and how we save lives. That's what our focus is. But the report is out there now, so we've got to deal with it. And it should never have been leaked. It certainly shouldn't have been leaked in a unredacted form where names are. So that's wrong. Full stop. But now it's out there. We've got to deal with the content of it. It's not our priority issue, but we've got to deal with it because I think a lot of our party members and supporters, well, they're like me. They're pretty shocked and actually pretty angry. And let me put it in this context. In 2017, we now discover, if this is true, if this is accurate, this report, that a group of staff, senior staff, were trying to undermine the election of a Labour government. And if it is true, of course that's appalling. And we came within, the last estimate was we came with about 2,500 votes of having a Labour government. That's how close we were. And what does that mean? It means, just take the current coronavirus outbreak, I think we would have been much better prepared because we would have been 3 years into a Labour government with a fully funded NHS. Those nurses and health workers that we go out and clap for, they would have had their pay rise, a decent pay rise that the Conservatives blocked. And also we would have established the National Care Service that we'd planned in that election. So it has a real impact on the real world, and very vulnerable people now, understandably, the people who really need a Labour government didn't get it, and that's why people are angry. So of course coronavirus it's a key issue we're facing. We're all facing it in our constituencies and nationally, but now this is out there, we've got to deal with it, and we've got to reassure our members it is being dealt with. This culture that was in the party at the time is eradicated.
But Keir Starmer has launched an independent investigation with his deputy Angela Rayner. He said it will look at the contents of the report as well as the commissioning, and he's urged colleagues to refrain from commenting while that report continues. So why do you feel you need to speak out? Because some will say, why are you stirring this?
I'm not stirring. We've lost members. We're losing members. I was told yesterday or the weekend, I don't know whether this is accurate or not, but 3,000 members have gone, have left us. So we've got to get the message out there. Keir's doing the right thing. He has my 100% support. Investigation. And he said as well yesterday that investigation will be independent and it will be fast. He's doing the right thing. Members expect to go a bit further though. And look, if the people who've been named in this report, we don't know whether it's true or not. These are allegations. But in normal circumstances, they should be treated like every other party member. If there are serious charges, allegations made against an individual party member, the normal process is that you get suspended. And that's what should happen to those named in this report, because if it is true, these are serious allegations.
But is this a normal process? I guess that's the question that should be put back to you, in the sense that there is this investigation going on. These were WhatsApp messages, and it's very unclear how they made it into hands of the governance and legal unit under Jeremy Corbyn's leadership when you were second in command, if you like. And is it not right that actually this investigation looks at how those messages were, and are you convinced that other people weren't using that kind of language on other factions?
Let's go through it, the reality of it. Keir has said the investigation will look into who commissioned, how that was commissioned. My understanding is that the General Secretary commissioned that report. I was not involved, that's not for me to comment on of that, but the General Secretary commissioned that report as part of the submission to the HRC investigation. That's the first thing, but Keir said we'll look into that. He said also, like me, this has been leaked in an unredacted form, and that's wrong, and that will be looked at as well. The key issue, though, is the content of this report. If it is true, it cannot be denied that this is incredibly serious. We're talking about a culture within the Labour Party to undermine the election of a Labour government when it was so desperately needed. So action needs, I think most of our members need to be reassured that in addition to the investigation, action is taken now as well on the basis of these serious charges. People should be treated fairly overall, and Of course, the investigation will look into these matters, but just as other members, when serious charges have been made against them, they've been suspended. I think this should happen then. Let me just say this though, if the investigation finds that this report is accurate, these members should have to be expelled and should never be allowed back into the Labour Party ever again, because this is serious matters. Now, you've asked me the question of how this information has gone into the report. My understanding is that this is all internal Labour Party communications. The EHRC asked that all those internal communications should be made available to them. That's exactly what happened here. My understanding about a WhatsApp group information that was contained in some of this is actually was placed onto the internal email system or communication system of the Labour Party. So that's, if it's available, it should be there. There should be no hiding of this. It's got to be full and open and transparent. If this was going on, and if it is true, this is absolutely appalling.
You've said that this report was commissioned, you believe, by Jenny Formby in order to be a submission to the Equalities and Human Rights Commission. Do you believe that this report will help or hinder the party's case when it comes to defending the accusation that the Labour Party is institutionally anti-Semitic in terms of racism?
I think the truth has got to come out. I'll just give one example from what I've seen in the report. I was asking consistently about why cases were being dealt with so slowly. In one instance, as I asked the question, someone had been suspended and their suspension had been lifted. And I said, why has that happened? All the way along, the expressions I was using is that the Labour Party, this is my criticism, we're not quick enough, not fast enough in dealing with cases, and we're not ruthless enough. That's the language I used. In this report, it appears that one of the senior staffers, one of the senior members of staff, when I made those comments, I was told to grow up. They undermined, I think, if this report is true, what this culture within the senior echelons of the staff of the Labour Party, if it is true, undermined our ability to effectively deal with anti-Semitism. And what this report does do as well, it nails all these ridiculous conspiracy theories. It says there was anti-Semitism. It was significant, exactly as some of us said, and it needed to be dealt with. And what this report, if it is true, reveals is the factionalism that was being displayed by certain senior staff members, if it is true, was undermining our ability to do that. That's one of the most appalling things of this.
But if you're saying that this report is, I mean, what I take from what you just said is that you think that this report is likely to increase the chances that the EHRC will find Labour to have been institutionally racist. And if that is the case, surely there will be those that say that by making that the case, by exposing the degree of factionalism, which many in your party say they knew all about anyway, this is a scorched earth mentality, isn't it? The commissioning and the putting this report into the public domain.
No, not at all. Whatever allows the EHRC to find the truth is the key issue. So everything in this report, if it is true, should be exposed to the EHRC. They've got to have access to all the information. We've got to rid ourselves of this culture that prevented a Labour government when we desperately needed one, but also, by the looks of it, also undermined the party's ability to deal with anti-Semitism effectively. So the EHRC should have everything, warts and all, warts and all. And if that means the EHRC comes to a finding saying that the Labour Party is institutionally anti-Semitic, well, so be it. But we've got to rid ourselves of this. I do not want Keir. Keir's a friend of mine. I support him. I back him on what he's doing in this report. I backed the investigation. He said it would be independent. He said it would be fast. I backed that. We don't want him to face ever this sort of culture of factionalism undermining the leader of the Labour Party, as Jeremy Corbyn faced, obviously, if this report is true.
The thing is, though, when the Jewish community are listening to the internal debate that is going on here, and you say things like, if the EHRC finds Labour institutionally anti-Semitic, so be it. That plays into exactly what we've been hearing from some... Let me read you this tweet from Peter Mason, who's the National Secretary of the Jewish Labour Movement. He says, "The overwhelming feeling in all of this is disgust. Once again, Jews are the ones made to feel like absolute pawns in a game of someone else's design." Isn't that exactly when you say so be it? Isn't that exactly what
no,
he's
not
talking
at all.
about?
Quite the reverse. I've worked with Peter Mason. I make it absolutely clear. If the EHRC comes along and asks for information from the Labour Party about its role in tackling anti-Semitism, they should have everything, everything, no holes barred. If they then come to the conclusion that actually the Labour Party failed to address anti-Semitism and they make their recommendations, we implement them. We've got to get this cleared up once and for all. I understand where Peter's coming from. This isn't about using people or pawns or individuals or groups or whatever. This is the search for the truth, because I've had enough. I had years of asking what was happening on anti-Semitism. We were being told, according to this report, inaccurate information consistently. If it's true, that's appalling. We should never allow this ever to happen again. We've got to end this culture. Now, many of the staff who are named in this report have left the Labour Party, party employment. If that is the case, fair enough. We'll see what happens as a result of this investigation. But if there are members of staff still with us who are named in this report, and this report is proved to be accurate, I expect the Labour Party to take the appropriate action. If there are people who have left the Labour Party's employ, and this investigation finds that this report is true, I would expect the Labour Party to take legal advice on what the party should be doing in that instance as well. It all depends on whether or not this report is true or not. But I tell you, it is worrying me and it is worrying Labour Party members to the extent that some people have left the party. And I say to them, stay with us because we need you to help us sort this out.
Just finally, clearly divisions in political parties are part of politics. The Conservatives have been racked with between Eurosceptics and Europhiles. But this is something different, isn't it? Isn't what this report show is that the Labour Party cannot accommodate the ideological or political spectrum that it has tried to, that it is not a big enough tent, and that the visceral, personal hatred of one another means that it is not something that can work.
We've had 100 years as a Labour Party in which we've been a broad church. We've accommodated range of views, left, centre, right, and we've hung together. All of us. That's the way we get better politics. Disagreement, don't mistake disagreement and different views from dissent. It's democracy. That's democracy, and we've held together for over a century. If this report is true? What's happened here is a very small group developed a culture in the highest echelons of the Labour Party to undermine the ability of a Labour government to be elected. We were founded as a party to represent people and get a Labour government elected to change the world. Now, if this report is true, this group prevented a Labour government elected when we desperately needed one. That's why so many people are shocked, like me, and angered like me, and that's why Keir will sort it with this investigation. But there needs to be, I think, some elements of prompter action before then, so we can reassure our members that we are taking it seriously.
Mr. McDonnell, thank you very much.